2025. You're all welcome. Our participants online, participants who are from the East African community, and all the other participants at large, you are very welcome to celebrate and commemorate this International Women's Day with us. So presenting today, we have virtual regional press conference, which is themed under curbing gender-based violence in the East African community, commercial investment schemes. We are privileged to have several panelists joining us today, and I will introduce them shortly. Some are from, we have a panelist from Siatini, Miss Jen Nalunga. We have Miss Maureen Odo from Femnet representing us from Nairobi. Then we have Miss Robina Kagoye from Voices for Labour. We have Mr. Joseph Vyomuhanji, who is representing Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability and also representing African Consortium on Corporate Accountability. We have Olivia Costa from TATIC, that's Tanzania Trade and Investment Coalition. We also have Honorable Fatuma Ndangiza from East African Legislative Assembly. And I'm going to introduce them briefly. Seated on my right is Miss Jen Nalunga from Siatini. I'm going to give a brief introduction of her and the other panelists. Jen Serwaji Nalunga is an expert on trade, fiscal and investment related issues. She has vast experience and expertise in analyzing national, regional, and international trade, investment, fiscal-related agreements and policies, and how they interact with key development dimensions such as climate change, gender, human rights, and food security. She has more than 20 years of experience in policy research, analysis, and advocacy, and has authored a number of policy-oriented studies and articles. She also has a substantial experience advising the government, civil society organizations, private sector, and policymakers on trade-related issues. She's currently the executive director of Siatini, Uganda. Siatini is a sub-regional NGO in East and Southern Africa. You are very welcome, Ms. Jen Nalunga.
Thank you so much.
We have with us Honorable Fatuma Ndangiza, who is a member of Parliament at the East African Legislative Assembly, and is a strong and passionate advocate for women's rights in the Women's Caucus. We are very honored to have you, Honorable Fatuma Ndangiza. You're very welcome to join us today. We also have Miss Maureen Odo from Femnet in Nairobi, who is a very passionate advocate as well for women's rights and gender equality, with a bias to advance gender-responsive programming for LGBTQ, adolescent girls and women access to comprehensive sexual reproductive health rights, as well as people living with disabilities and HIV/AIDS. She thrives in advocating for civil society's advocacy agenda on sexual reproductive health rights, and is quite passionate about promoting, practicing, and supporting full implementation of feminist principles alongside advancing the SDGs 1 through to 17. You're very welcome, Maureen Odo, and it's an honor to have you here with us. We also have Miss Robina Kagoye from Voices for Labour in Uganda. Kagoye Robina is the founder and executive director of Voices for Labour, which is a Ugandan civil society organization that promotes accessible justice to workers through legal aid and representation, strategic litigation, research, advocacy, and training. She is a lawyer with a broad expertise in labor and employment law and has been at the forefront of some of the landmark cases that have shaped labor law in Uganda through her role as a former member of the Industrial Court of Uganda. So you're very, very welcome, Miss Kagoye Robina. We are very honored to have you today representing Voices for Labour, and we hope to have a fruitful discussion with you. We also have with us Mr. Joseph Vyomuhanji, who is representing Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability and also Africa Consortium on Corporate Accountability. Mr. Joseph is the project coordinator of the Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability, which is a civil society consortium currently comprising 23 members who come together to enhance accountability by corporations, states, international financial institutions, and development partners for violations or abuses of economic, social, and cultural rights. Is an advocate of the courts of judicature in Uganda, a member of the network of public interest lawyers, NETPIL, in Uganda, and a member also of the East African Law Society Business and Human Rights Committee. He also represents the Global South Civil Society Organizations on the Extraterritorial Obligations Consortium Steering Committee. He's passionate about economic and social rights and currently focused on business and human rights. You're very welcome, Mr. Vyomuhanji. We are honored to have you here with us today. Olivia Costa, who is from Tanzania Trade and Investment Coalition. She's based in Dar es Salaam, and she's an expert in the area of trade, investment, and women economic empowerment. We are honored to have you with us, Miss Olivia Costa. And so these are our panelists, and dear panelists, in case you receive a notification on your screen to be a panelist, please accept that notification so that you can have access to the panelists' rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, we begin our press conference right now, and we are going to listen to it read to us by Miss Jen Nalunga. You're very welcome, Miss Jen Nalunga.
Thank you so much, and we thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm going to read out our statement, our press statement, and as the moderator has pointed out, it's a joint statement by Siatini, Femnet. Femnet is the African Women's Development and Communication Network based in Nairobi, but working within the entire African region. Voices for Labour, based here in Uganda. The Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability, based here, but also working within the Africa region under the Africa Consortium on Corporate Accountability. And TATIC, Tanzania Trade and Investment Coalition, working in the entire Tanzania, but based in Dar es Salaam. So the statement is a joint statement. And as the moderator has pointed out, the theme of our press statement is curbing gender-based violence in the East African Community Commercial Investment Schemes. And it's dated 8th March 2025. First of all, I would like to wish our viewers, our listeners, wish you a happy Women's Day. Here we go. This is our statement. As the world observes International Women's Day under the theme for all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment, we, the civil society organizations, focused on women's rights, human rights, and justice within the East African community and also across the African continent, express deep concern regarding the growing prevalence of gender-based violations in commercial investment initiatives region, especially in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. The East African Report on Gender, Community Development and Civil Society, highlights the persistent marginalization of women in investment schemes, despite women comprising over 60% of the East African population. This marginalization is largely attributed to the significant gaps in the current investment policies, laws, and agreements, which continue to undermine the gender equity agenda and hinder the empowerment of women and girls in the region. Foreign direct investment inflows have over the past years been steadily increasing in the East African region, especially in land-based investments, including agriculture, natural resources, and infrastructure, due to a number of factors, including the investor-friendly environment, the discovery of commercial viable reserves of mineral resources, and existence of fertile soils. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD 2022, the World Investment Report, the total FDI inflows into Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania increased by 11.2% between 2014 and 2019, from US dollars 3,296 million in 2014 to US dollars 3,710 million in 2019. This highlights the growing FDI contribution to economic growth within the region. As such, East African partner states are inclined to continue to attract these investments without considering any reforms that address the plight of workers in these investment schemes. These challenges include forced cohabitation, sexual harassment, sextortion, low wages, land grabs, forced eviction, discrimination in terms of wages, human trafficking, and so many other violations. In addition, there is very limited access to remedy mechanisms. Therefore, it's against this background that Siatini, together with Femunet, Voices for Labor, Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability, and Tanzania Trade and Investment Coalition highlight the following issues and call upon the relevant stakeholders to urgently and decisively take action to create safer, more equitable investment environment that protect and advance women's rights. These are the issues. 1, worsening barriers to land and property ownership by commercial investment projects, particularly in agriculture, mining, real estate, infrastructure development, require vast land for operation and hence heavily rely on land and property investments. However, we observe that land-based investments lack transparency during the process of acquiring land, in defiance of the existing internationally recognized principle of free, prior, and informed consent in our region. Women in East Africa face legal and cultural barriers to land and property ownership, as they are often seen as caregivers and homemakers with recognition of own, manage, inherit, or access land and property. This makes the women vulnerable to land grabbing and displacement without compensation in case of encroachment by commercial projects in their communities. 2, weak legal protection and limited access to remedy mechanisms. Women often face weak legal protection and limited access to remedy mechanisms as they seek to redress after experiencing gender-based violations in commercial investment schemes across the East African region. While there may be laws in the East Africa partner states, such for example, in Uganda, Uganda has the Uganda Employment Act, CAP 22, and the Occupation Health, Safety and Health Act, CAP 2031, which intend to protect women from exploitation, harassment, and discrimination. However, these laws are often poorly enforced due to lack of resources and insufficient labor inspectors. Additionally, women workers in these sectors are often unable to freely form or join labor unions, which severely limits their ability to collectively advocate for better working conditions or to seek justice for those violations. According to the human rights and labor rights concerns in the Kalangala Bidco Oil Palm Uganda Limited or POOL findings by Siatini, 70% of the women workers did not belong to the trade union. This trade union is called the Uganda Beverages, Tobacco and Allied Workers Union. Because the union and its leadership had a close relationship with Bidco management, construction and mining, where women are often employed in vulnerable positions. And this goes against the Maputo Protocol, to which Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania are signatories. Recent reports have exposed the widespread practice of sex for jobs in tea plantations in Kenya, as women face coercion and abuse from supervisors and labor recruiters, despite the existence of laws and policies designed to protect women. Although Kenya ratified the International Labour Organization Convention number 029 on forced labor and developed the Kenya National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, there has been weak enforcement and a lack of robust reporting mechanisms, leaving many women vulnerable. Uganda faces similar challenges, particularly in large-scale land-based investments, undermining the efforts of ILO Convention number 190 on violence and harassment, on curbing gender-based violence and harassment, which Uganda ratified in August 2023. Similarly, a report by Tanzania Media Women Association showed that 89% of women in the public sector have experienced sextortion while seeking for a job or a promotion, or while requesting for a service. This further marginalizes women and hence limits their ability to thrive in the workforce. 4. Discrimination and economic exploitation of women workers. The casualization of labor has increasingly become a norm in commercial investment schemes in East Africa, where workers are employed without formal contracts, making their jobs insecure, precarious, and limiting their access to remedy in case of violation by the commercial investments. The Uganda Annual National Labour Force Survey of 2021 revealed that the majority of employed persons, 67%, were employed on basis of oral agreements, and only 33% had written contracts. This largely affects women through systemic discrimination, economic exploitation, and structural factors such as job insecurity, low wages, limited maternity rights, high exposure to gender-based violence due to lack of access to grievous mechanisms or legal protection, despite their significant contribution to the labor force. According to the CIATIN 2020 report on the Kalangala Bidco Oil Palm Uganda Limited operations, it was revealed that women casual workers faced several cohabitation, no formal working contracts, no entitlement to paid maternity leave, no paid annual leave, and poor working conditions, among other violations. The gender pay gap, mainly attributed to cultural norms, has been prevalent and insistent in commercial investment schemes across the East African region. The social expectations and traditional gender roles assigned to women perpetuate patriarchal ideologies and keep them in a less than position, inhibiting their economic success. However, this does not align with the ILO Convention number 100 on equal remuneration, to which Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania signed and ratified. A United Nations Women's Report 2023, entitled Why Women Earn Less, Gender Pay Gaps and Labor Market Inequalities in Uganda, revealed that the unadjusted gender pay gap stands at 25.2% on an hourly basis, which shows that women earn approximately 75.8% of what men earn per hour. It further highlighted that this gap persisted across all education levels and was more pronounced in rural areas. This is made worse and untenable unfair minimum wage in the East African region. For example, in Uganda, the minimum wage was set at only Uganda shillings 6,000, and that's approximately 1.61 US dollars in 1984, and has since then not been reviewed. As such, the impractical minimum wage has exposed women workers to economic exploitation and income inequalities, perpetuating the cycle of poverty in the region. This is our call to action. 1. We call upon governments in the East African region to take legal frameworks to ensure protection of rights of women workers, local communities, and environmental rights. Laws like the Investment Code Acts should include human rights impact assessment, enforce performance requirements, and align with the Africa Union guidelines on large-scale land-based investments. Additionally, governments should translate the United Nations binding principles on business and human rights into binding national laws by developing national action plans on business and human rights to ensure accountability and safeguards of women's rights in investment activities. 2. The governments of Kenya and Tanzania should expedite the process of ratifying the International Labour Organization Convention number 190 on ending violence and harassment in the workplace, and align their legal frameworks to address the plight faced by women in commercial investments in their countries. Government must also align their legal frameworks with its provisions to effectively address the challenges faced by women workers in commercial investments in order to strengthen the enforcement mechanisms and ensure protection from exploitation, discrimination, and gender-based violence. So Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania should bilateral investment treaties in order to ensure balance between protection of the rights of the people and the environment on the one hand, of the investors on the other hand. These treaties should be reviewed to eliminate provisions that grant excessive privileges to the investors at the expense of women's rights that have been continued to be undermined. This is to help eliminate the excessive rights enjoyed by the investors at the expense of women's rights, which continue to perpetuate violence against them. 4. Governments in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania should establish easily accessible gender-sensitive remedy mechanisms to ensure that women workers in commercial investments have access to safe, transparent, and effective grievance mechanisms that allow them to report gender-based violence, harassment, and unfair labor practices without fear of
Press statement. I'm now going to listen to our panelists to receive what they have to say in response to this statement. We shall start with Honorable Fatuma Ndangize, a Member of Parliament at East African Legislative Assembly. You're very welcome. Madam, please respond. Thank you. And as she prepares herself to respond, I'd like to invite the participants, please, to submit any questions that you have through the chat room, and we shall have a chance to respond to them at the end. Okay, thank you. So, okay. As Honorable prepares, let's have Miss Olivia Costa from TATIC in Dar es Salaam to please give her remarks.
It's Ezekiel. Ezekiel who? Another one. Okay. She's also preparing herself.
Okay.
We can go to Joseph.
Okay. As Miss Olivia Costa also prepares herself, let's listen to Mr. Joseph Vyomuhanji, representing UCCA and SCCA. Are you able to respond, Mr. Joseph? You're very welcome to give your remarks.
In the East African experience in the world of work. As a gender, the first disruption they cause is at that level. Once evictions are happening, in between those evictions, the women have no choice but to continue feeding their families. So those are some of the social challenges that are the increased foreign direct investment in our region has occasioned on the women agenda. And the human rights abuses resulting from those corporate activities are quite enormous, as highlighted in our statement. And I feel we need to put a lot of emphasis on the lived experiences of those women. As civil society, we have done a lot of advocacy to push the strengthening of legal policy frameworks. And one of the success stories of worked here is the inclusion of the principles of free and informed consent in our mining policy and subsequently the Mining Act. The principles were included we need to ensure that we continue our advocacy.
We thank him for bringing out those issues pertaining on the ground. Mubende, Karamoja, Kasanda.
Okay.
Then you go to another
Once we
one.
have
Okay.
the application of the principles of free, fair, and equal consent for land-based investments in our country, the voices of women will be heard as these investments are being done. The greatest challenge also is around capitalization of labor. Madam Jane has made mention of the fact that most of the contracts for people that are currently working even those that are currently there, their roles. So I call upon
Very much, Mr. Byomuhanji. It's very important what you've pointed out on the issues the artisanal miners are facing in the mining regions in Uganda, like Mubende and Kasanda, and that issue of access to remedy. Those are very vital issues that indeed we need to look into, and we hope policymakers and especially people at the workplace can look into and address. Thank you very much. So I'm going to invite Miss Robina Kagoye from Voices for Labour to give her remarks as well. You're very welcome, Miss Kagoye. I repeat.
They can
Oh, okay. So Start again. Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph Yomuhanji. I think we had a slight technical glitch there, but we thanked you so much for your remarks on mining and the challenges artisanal miners, especially the female artisanal miners, are facing in regions like Mubenda and Kasanda in Uganda and in other East African regions, and pointing out the need for access to remedy. Thank you for your remarks, and we hope these remarks can be at least addressed by employers in the workplace. We invite Miss Robina Kagoye to give her remarks. Miss Robina Kagoye is from Voices of Africa. Voices for Labor. Voices for Labor. You're very welcome, Miss Kagoye, to give your remarks.
Everyone, and thank you, Siatini, for spearheading this conference. We're very grateful, and the statement is very representative of the plight of women workers in this country. I just want to emphasize more about access to justice, which is more of access to remedy. And in this context, I want still to call upon the government of Uganda to be very intentional when it comes to access to justice. Currently, we really have very few labor inspectors, and when you talk about labor inspectors, these are the very officers who are passing off as labor officers, and the labor officers under law are undertaking many functions, and they are very, very few. So the call to really increase funding to the Ministry of Gender so that they can improve labor administration in the country is very key to promoting access to justice. Um, some of the districts have only one labor officer in place, and then that labor officer is expected to adjudicate labor complaints, but at the same time do inspections, and it's really quite unrealistic. And even then, our industrial court is still understaffed. It is still having two judges, one registrar, with many cases all coming from the different districts of Uganda. So when you're talking about, and then as the previous speaker, Mr. Joseph, has highlighted, um, when it comes to the women, most of the women are taking the jobs which are more precarious in nature because of their low skills and the less capability to compete favorably for the labor market. So they end up occupying the jobs in the periphery of the labor market, and these are the jobs which are over casualized. So when still it comes to accessing remedy or accessing justice, there are those issues, because if you're working and you don't have a contract, you don't have an appointment letter, you don't have an employment card, all you have is maybe something to identify you, maybe a number that can make you to access a certain company. When your rights are violated, in most cases, these employers deny having employed these women. So the government should really be deliberate and intentional when it comes to access to justice for the women workers. And then on the aspect of unionization, in our statement, there was that issue where women are not joining, they're not able to join unions, or they're not able to enjoy their rights, their freedom of association to join or form trade unions, and maybe to collective bargaining. And I think this is a general issue, is that yes, we have many trade unions in the country, but there are other factors that are affecting unionization. We have trade unions that really have the desire to organize workers, but the workplace has been militarized, and for me, I want to emphasize this. Currently, most of the workplaces are being guarded by the army, that even the labor inspectors fear to go there. So if labor inspectors fear to enter these workplaces, how do you expect trade unions to enter them? And some companies have been very, very adamant when it comes to recognizing, to signing cooperation agreements with these trade unions, you find a union that organized workers 10 years back, but the employer has refused to recognize the union. And in that 10-year framework, they give, once they realize that, okay, this list of members, this list of my workers have joined a trade union, they just simply lay off, they just dismiss you without reason. So we still have challenges that are surrounding that right to unionization. And yet we know that is also one of the ways women can build their collective power to fight for the inequalities, to fight for the vulnerabilities that are happening in the workplace. For now, that is what I wanted to emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kagoye. That is you pointed out some very pertinent issues right there. The militarization of workplaces and workers and the difficulties concerning unionization.
Next.
Okay. So thank you very much. We shall come back to that, Ms. Kagoye, because we need to know more about that. Thank you. Now we shall invite Honorable Fatuma Ndangiza, Member of Parliament from East African Legislative Assembly's Women's Caucus. You're very welcome, Ms. Ndangiza. Ms. Kagoye, sorry, no. Ms. Ndangiza, you're unmuted. You're muted, I think. As Honorable Fatuma gets ready, please remember to send in any questions or interesting points from the discussion, which will be addressed later. Okay. As Honorable Fatuma gets ready, let's listen from Miss Maureen Odo from Femnet in Nairobi. You're very welcome, Miss Odo, to give us your remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm so grateful. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you so much. As I was graciously invited and also introduced when this when the session was starting. I'm Maureen Anyango Odor, and I work for Femnet. I support sexual productive health and ending violence against girls and women as the lead. So what we do, we work very closely across all the thematic areas. As you know, at Femnet, this mental health and well-being is the paramount business that we do every day. So targeting today, I would also want to wish all women listening and also all women who have been here as a panelist and all supporters of women a very happy International Women's Day. It's a very lovely day when we sit back as women and all supporters, allies of women, to look at where we came from, where we are going, to try and have a lens that can clearly be pro-women in our society. The statistics are very clear, and moving from our histories in Africa, when women issue became a development issue, the continent changed. And we affirm that this is the case. And hereby we are looking forward to be able able to unconsciously make sure that our agenda around women are met. From my perspective, looking at women health and well-being, and specifically sexual reproductive health, you've seen what is happening even in the trade. It has been spoken here, where there is still no very aligned focus in ensuring that our women are empowered. Empowered, economic empowered women will take care of their health. Economic empowered women will not delay when they're supposed to access facility for delivery. But when they are not economically empowered, when they are battered, when they are violated, it is very easy for them not even to take care of their own self. So we are looking up to having progress on all this. When you look at women in economic empowerment, women in businesses, and we are able to win in that sphere, we are also winning in women as being able to take care of their fundamental health, which is a human right. Sexual reproductive health is a human right, and it's not about favors to one gender. We look at it that one day, if we are able to coalesce together in the world, we are able to support each other, both men and women, then even the word gender will not exist, because people will be doing what they can do as individuals, and therefore we shall have a very good and better place to live in. It is a very, for the civil society organization working towards women development, we are standing at a very time that is a bit difficult, with a lot of uncertainties. We are seeing everything shrinking, the spaces shrinking, the funding not being there. People are trying to look at it as power struggle when we talk about gender. Even the term gender is becoming not an agenda. But we can't relent, and it has to go out there that we are going to remain in the space. The right thing will remain right. We all know that there is no way the world will move with men only, with a flag of patriarchy, and leaves behind the women. We have very good men allies at positions of power, and many times they come and say, "Hey, we can't leave our women, we can't leave our women behind." This is something that we really have to do, and we really have to focus on, especially at this time that it seems it's getting a bit. There's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, so we have to prioritize it. Women must be in business. Women must own them own properties. Women has to be in the decision-making tables, and this will bring the gist of it. If you look at the statistics and also how the history, even the history of this continent, you will realize that once there was deliberate force to bring women to decision-making tables, to position of power, including political spaces, legislations that changed in many countries. We saw there was a lot of change even in the economic empowerment. We saw real change because women means a lot, and a change that is directed to women is a change that is directed to all of us. When resources are in the hands of women, it will reach up to the hard reach, the person to reach. Therefore, it is very important to look at it as an opportunity rather than maybe a competition of gender, but rather an opportunity and a way to collaborate, a way to work together, a way to partner to make our continent a better place for all of us. There's a lot of opportunities currently. We see more women have gone to school. We also see more women coming out to vie. So therefore, it means that there's that willpower. All we need is to agree on it. Even in East Africa, we need to. I really applaud one of our panelists here, who is a member of parliament, a member of the Yala. We need to see much of this. We need to see more of this, and we need to support each other. So for this today, International Women's Day, we're just going to reflect on how are we changing our ideas. the landscape is changing. How are we changing our gears to make sure that we see women thriving, we see women accessing health services as it is required, we see women in political spaces, we see women in businesses, we see women thriving. And as I've said, when a woman has thrived, we have all won. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Maureen Anyango Odwo. Thank you so much for those insights that you have shared on women economic empowerment. Indeed, when the woman is happy and able to take care of herself, everyone wins. So it takes all of us to empower the woman. Thank you very much for those remarks. I'll now invite Honorable Fatuma Dangiza. Are you ready, ma'am?
Hello.
Yes, please. You're very welcome. Yes, you're welcome, Honorable. Yes, please.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry for the network problem. So I think you've already introduced me. My name is Fatuma Ngiza, a member from Rwanda, and also the Secretary General for Yala Women Caucus. I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of Yala Women Caucus and the Yala in general to thank CIT Uganda for organizing the virtual press conference on curbing GBV in EAC commercial investment schemes together with your esteemed partners. This is an important and timely debate as we are commemorating the International Women's Day 2025 with the theme Accelerating Progress, and you are expected to devise our decisions and strategies on how we can accelerate gender equality. EALA Women Caucus, as you might know, a caucus that brings together women legislators from 7 partner states, and our mission is to champion gender equality and women empowerment. Of course, we are guided by the East African Community Treaty, in particular, Articles 121 and 122 that talks about the role of women in socio-economic development, and also Article 5, specifically the one related to gender mainstreaming, and also the fundamental principles, including gender equality. This discussion on curbing gender-based violence is very important in the sense that, as we know, East African community is a community that promotes trade among partners, and the 2 flagship programs or pillars of the Customs Union and the Common Market Protocol are critical for facilitating trade in the region. But when we talk about trade facilitation and commercial investment schemes, we know that over 60% of the EAC population, of the 300 million EAC citizens, are women, and most of them are involved in cross-border trade. So what we've been doing as the other Women Caucus is through our legislative agenda and oversight role is to advocate, especially with the Council of Ministers and other stakeholders, to ensure that they remove barriers for women in the area of trade, and the starting point should be to avail information related to trade. Because sometimes many women do not understand how to do business across borders within the EAC. For example, when you talk about simplified trade regime, many women do not understand the bureaucracies, the paperwork, and because of lack of information, this could be a source of gender-based violence. And therefore, we thank SEA team and other actors who are providing information and raising awareness to ensure that women in the region understand basics about trade in the region, how the customs union, the common market works, how the one-stop border post works. Of recent, we've also making our advocacy with the East African Secretariat, East African Secretariat, because we know that this is an institution that is in charge of coordination and facilitation of EAC integration to ensure that the various one-stop border posts mainstreams gender and in particular provides facilities for women doing cross-border trade. Sometime back, through our parliamentary standing committees, in particular the General Purpose Committee that is also in charge of matters related to gender equality and women, we realized that most of our borders, including the Namanga border and also most borders across the region, do not have facilities for women doing cross-border trade. For example, we don't even have a space where mothers who are breastfeeding can sit. There is nothing like shelter. They have to move around with their products. But there is also lack of, for example, a women's window at the one-stop border post where women maybe who face sexual-based violence or lack information can go and seek information. When we engage with the women across the borders, we realize that some of them face harassment, but they fear to go to the officials. And therefore, we've been advocating with our partners, including EAC, to ensure that they provide facilitation at the one-stop border posts at the borders to ensure that women have access, and in case of any grievances, it is easy for them to get people to address these grievances. In other matters, we are also legislating on some of the legislations that are related to promotion of gender equality. Is, for example, some laws that have been passed in the past, the law on gender equality and equity that would ensure that there is gender equality across the board. Then there is also a bill that was passed on anti-trafficking, human trafficking, because up to now we still have a challenge of human trafficking in the region, but we also have genital mutilation as a challenge in the region. We've also enacted a bill around that, but we've also passed so many motions related to women and trade, motions fighting gender-based violence, and we believe through such legislation and also introduction of motions in the House, we are able to raise the challenge that women face, especially regarding to gender-based violence. But of course, one of the challenges that we have faced is that despite the legislation, it takes a long time for our heads of state to assent to these bills. So despite the importance of these bills, up to now, they haven't been assented to. And you've made it a point as the Yala Women Caucus to ensure that we revitalize these bills, and we look upon to you as the civil society that is committed to gender equality and also curbing gender-based violence and promoting trade in the region to support us as we revive, for example, the human trafficking bill, and also the one on genital mutilation, female genital mutilation bill, because we believe these are very important bills. So without taking much time, I just wanted to say that as the Yala Women Caucus, we are committed to gender equality and the advancement of women, and in particular, as we commemorate the International Women's Day with the theme Accelerating Progress, Accelerating Actions, we need to work together to ensure that we come up with innovative solutions to curb gender-based violence. Look forward to the outcomes of this important meeting. And once again, I'd like to thank CEATIN, Uganda, and all your partners for this very timely initiative. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Ndangiza, for those very insightful remarks. And we are honored to have, and we are privileged really to have teams like yours, like the Yala Women's Caucus, who are really striving to promote the trans-border trade within East African community. Thank you very much for that work that you're doing, and indeed we hope that we can, as civil society organizations as CEATIN, help you to promote the adoption of the bills, the anti-human trafficking bill and the female genital mutilation bill. Thank you very much. We shall now maybe invite Ezekiel from TATIC to represent Miss Olivia Costa. Are you ready, Mr. Ezekiel? We are happy to have you here. Miss Olivia Costa is from Tanzania Trade and Investment Coalition, but is not able to make it here. So Mr. Ezekiel is representing her from TATIC as well. So we are happy to have you here. If you're able, you are very welcome to give your remarks. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I had a big challenge in the beginning. I had you call me, but I didn't manage to speak. But now I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as our previous speakers introduced and also wished every one of you a happy Women's Day, I also would love to wish you all and all women around the world a happy International Women's Day. Yes, so why we celebrate the Women's Day internationally, we see a need of women who have access to resources, including land, with each of which they are affected by investment, where the land is taken for conservation in Tanzania, but also for mining. And if at all even compensation is given, mostly men are given the compensation because they are the owners of land and leave women and children affected. And we have observed that women sometimes left without nothing as a man got money and leave their family. So we wish East African community states to give access, control, and ownership to women to natural resources, including land, of which their life is based on that. Despite the fact that it is clear that it is allowed for women to own land, still because of the patriarch system that affected most of the women in East Africa, they fail to own resources. They fail to have access to resources that can run their own life. They remain dependent on men. But we see now, even the country that we are, president is a woman. You see, we have several ministers who are women. These women have power to do what a man can do, despite of the biological difference, but not the gender difference. Our communities, our women in our communities are affected because of this investment. Even the government itself failed to give priorities, at least for women to own land, of which these are only resources that they can own to generate their income, including in planting for, food, but also using it. It is the land that they use it to access even the firewood they collect for their cooking and so forth. Our settlement is based on land, but then women are only dependent on men, see, because men are the only owning land. We have taken several initiatives, at least to mobilize for women to have ownership of a land. Even if the man then don't want to give a woman the full ownership of a land, but at least they should co-own. If at all, then the investment take the land, then both parties can benefit from the compensation provided. This investment also should respect women and human rights across all East African states. As this is a need for every one of us, and it's a wish to every one of us for women to have equal rights as men, but also have access, control, and ownership of our natural resources, but also participating in decision making, starting from the family level, community level, but also the national level. We see even that women are sometimes given a chance as just a representative of special seat, while in the general election, also they are the one who vote for those who are in power. We need this party, this government promoting equal opportunity for women and decision making process, of which then the elected parties can, of course, the parties can assign women and men to be part in the election process and give chance for women to vie for position that facilitate decision making in our communities. So that's the only remark I would have, and I wish all women happy International Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ezekiel. Thank you very much. I would invite you before you leave, and thank you very much for your remarks on land ownership and the hardships there. I'd invite you before you leave to say something about TATIC and maybe any work you have had, especially in the mining industry.
You want me to speak about TATIC and women health and mining industry?
Yes,
because
please.
TATIC with partnership with its members, including Aki Madini, lawyers, environmental action team, and other members have facilitated several women in ownership of land, where we facilitated land use plan, but also awards CCR certificate, customary certificate of right of occupancy to women, so that women have ownership of land. It is to promote at least for women ownership in the end, but also facilitate women participating in decision making, of which we promoted their voices to be heard, be organizing, but also women to be organized themselves so that they can buy for position, but also they can demand for accountability for the resources and participate in decision making. These are the things that we think, if at all women rights are protected over the investment, including mining, but also even the newly carbon credit investment that is now taking the lead in the globe. We ensure that women at least remain little unaffected with this investment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ezekiel, representing TATIC, Tanzania Trade and Investment Coalition. These are very important issues, especially where investments rely heavily on land acquisition. So I'm going to just read a few comments from the comments section and maybe a few questions from participants. And participants, you're very welcome to send in more questions, which we can listen to and our panelists would address. This came in from Donald, and said, now that trade and investment are lauded as contemporary silver bullets in the East African sub-region and generic gender policies, both in workplaces and communities hosting investments exist, what are women and girls saying regarding making gender equality and actions on sexual and gender-based violence a reality? So yeah, we have seen, and Donald is asking, we have legislation, bills, we have all these policies which are protective of women, which is good, but the enforcement, and there's that gap, that huge gap that still exists between having the policies and the implementation. So I'll invite our panelists to take up that question. Let me start with Ms. Nalunga to tell us what she thinks about this.
Okay, I'll just be brief on how to make gender equality and actions on gender-based violence a reality. I think, like you have pointed out, Ms. Walungi, the legal frameworks are there. They have some gaps. But I think also, and I think it's Robina who pointed this out, that it's all about all of us, because it starts with us, men and women, in the homes, the way you treat your girls and boys, ensuring that when you take boys to school, girls also go to school, So it's all of us, You can't say it's about men, it's about women and girls to make that happen. For me, I think, in fact, the road to women economic empowerment lies through the men. We have to convince the men, but we also have to put the legal frameworks in place. Thanks.
So it takes both the men and the women.
All of us.
All of us have to come together to make this work. Thank you so much, Ms. Nalunga. So I'll also invite the media to ask any questions that they have. And I'll also, the media to ask. And I'll also ask something back to Ezekiel. Would like to know how TATIC is addressing GBV in Tanzania. Would you have anything to say about that in particular?
Just to contribute is that to address gender-based violence in relation to investment is that TATEC, with its members, of which there are 12 members, have been advocating for women, reduction of gender-based violence at the mining, and of which we see that investment affects, or experience in areas where investment is taking place, women experience more, gender-based violence as compared to other places. So, TATIC and its member has been advocating for the reduction of women gender-based violence, but also advocating to mobilize themselves to be able to, to report if cases, if any cases are seen at the investment areas, including mining areas. So this is what we do, and we also collaborate with our members to address issues at the very, very low level, community level, to the national level.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll maybe invite Miss Robina Kagoye to tell us more about the militarization of workers and propose solutions to that, and propose solutions that can help women, because the labor, you had already mentioned that the unions are available already, but women are finding it hard to join. So what can promote the unionization of these women in the workplace? Miss Robina, are you available? Yes.
Yes, I'm available.
Good.
About the militarization of the work, I think we should need the goodwill of the government, because ideally, I do not see, I do not see the reason as to why some of the workplaces should be guarded by the army. And I do not see the reason as to why, when someone goes to deliver a letter to a company, the letter must be read at the gate, and then the employer decides whether that letter will be admitted, or whether those visitors will be admitted inside the factory or not. I think the government just needs to create a balance between workers and employers. I can see our president is very passionate about the investors, but he should be passionate about the workers as well.
Yeah.
The workers need to be protected as well. When you reach an extent where a labor inspector fears to enter a certain workplace, yet the law has empowered that labor inspector with a lot of power to even close a workplace. But then, when there's militarization, then the rule of law is just um, useless. So for the militarization, we just need the political will of the government. The workplace shouldn't be militarized. These women are going to access justice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miss Robina, for that response. And I'll also ask another question to you, and maybe Miss Nalunga, on behalf of women in the workplace. There's a lot of stigma that comes with reporting, a case of sexual harassment. Even you, the one reporting, you feel guilty of reporting as a woman representing women in the workplace. I'd like to ask you to propose, to first of all tell women, especially those in the informal sector, where and how it is that they can report sexual harassment. Is reporting safe, first of all? If it is safe, are there places to which these women can report, both in the informal sector and also in the formal sector? And then can reporting be made safer in such a way that women are not penalized for reporting? Are there ways in which the reporting mechanisms are made safe for women, so that, and even men, by the way, and even men, are there reporting mechanisms that make reporting safe? So I'll direct this question to first Robina and then Miss Nalunga. So Miss Kagoye, you're welcome to start with that question because you represent Voices for Labour, and then Miss Nalunga will give her remarks after you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, I would start by just a small comment about sexual harassment. And I must say sexual harassment is very prevalent in the workplace. But also, I do not know, but I think the patriarchal society that we live in has deflected sexual harassment, that sometimes the victims actually don't feel safe to report. Because sometimes when workers come out to report sexual harassment, definitely they will say, where have you been? Why did it take you this long? Or maybe it has been a bad affair that has gone wrong. So there's a lot of stigma. I must agree with you, there's a lot of stigma surrounding sexual harassment. Previously, before the amendment, workplaces that had over 25 employees were supposed to have sexual harassment policies in place. And those sexual harassment policies are supposed to handle issues to do with, for example, confidentiality, not being non-retaliation from the employer if you come to report, and also the protection, just the protection that you're safe. You have a safe, you have safe hands, you're in safe hands when you report. And so with the amendment, every employer is supposed to have a sexual harassment policy in place. But this is just a new amendment, and I think the Ministry of Labour needs also to give guidelines on how the sexual harassment policy should look like. For example, how does it protect an employee from retaliation if she or he reports sexual harassment? What about confidentiality and the stigma surrounding the whole thing of reporting? So we are yet, I think, to discuss with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development on how this sexual harassment policy should be look like. Of course, certain workplaces have them, but they are not adequate. Now, on where they can report, ideally, every workplace is supposed to have a committee, a safe committee where these complaints can be reported to. But where there is no committee, the worker can still go to a labor officer. But also there are NGOs that are really dealing with, there are civil society organizations that promote the rights of women, and still workers can still go and get legal aid and legal advice from those civil society organizations. I think for now that is what I would submit.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Robina. I'll also invite Ms. Nalunga to also give a comment on that, and especially representing the women in the informal sector on where to report and how to report. Thank you.
There are a number of grievance mechanisms because also even in markets, take an example in markets, sometimes they have committees, sometimes the AOC system is also there. But I think broadly, our governments have look at the rights of the employers and the investors, and they give them more power. In fact, the power relation between the employees and the employers is skewed. Government has concentrated so much on attracting investors, and also ensuring that we have jobs without looking at the quality of jobs, and also looking at the rights of the employers. And I think this is the time for us to be able to balance the rights of the employers and the rights of the employees, so that people can be able to work and live in dignity. What's happening today, you go to a lot of investment schemes, a lot of workplaces. People are not, I will talk for Uganda. They are not working in dignity, but because you need a job, you have nothing to do. And I think this has to change. And that's why in our statement, we are talking about reviewing our investment code, our investment laws to ensure that there are human rights impact assessments. If an investor, you are bringing an investment in the country, what are the human rights impact assessments around your investments, but also ensuring that the rights of the workers are respected. It's really, really important. And I think when you look at our call for action, we are clear. Even for redress mechanism, remedies, we are talking about safe. Is it accessible, safe for women? As Robina has pointed out, sometimes women fear to report a sexual harassment case because they end up being embarrassed, telling them that maybe you asked for it, how do you dress, why do you put on lipstick, so some women just say, okay, maybe I will leave the job. So we need to address these issues.
Thank you very much, Miss Nalunga. It's very, very true. Sometimes it's the women who get ostracized for reporting. So it's very important that reporting is made safe. And I'm going to ask two more questions. The first will go to Honorable Ndangiza on remedy mechanisms. What remedy mechanisms can be put in place, Ms. Honorable Ndangiza? What remedy mechanisms can be put in place to make to improve fairness at the workplace? You're welcome, Honorable. Honorable Ndangiza? As she prepares herself to answer, let me ask Mr. Vyomuhanji Joseph to talk about how to improve dignity in the workplace for women and also for men, but dignity for workers. You're welcome, Mr. Vyomuhanji.
Thank you, moderator, and fellow panelists that are steering this conversation on International Women's Day. Dignity rests on the aspiration we have as a globe and the SDGs to attain decent work in the context of the workspace for women. So, for us to be able to have dignity, the focus in the formal sector should be really placed on qualification and skill as opposed to gender. Oftentimes, women are perceived as a liability to the workforce because of their maternal function, especially the younger women. As they are recruiting, for example, if I want to apply for a job with a woman my age, the chances are high the employer would consider to take the man as opposed to the woman because that woman is probably just starting a family and in no time she's going to start giving birth and then go for maternity leave. And for some workers, especially in the private sector, they consider that as time wasted because they want to pay you for the value you bring to the company. They want to only pay people that are generating revenue. And while a lady is on maternity leave, they consider that as a liability. So we need to rethink through this and acknowledge the fact that women have that maternal function. That should not make them less or better workers. We need to design and implement systems that can cover up once they are on maternity leave and they're duly implemented. Without that, the quintessential capitalists will keep looking at them as liabilities in the workplace, because when you look at the man hours lost over the months of maternity leave, they'll be telling you that, this female employee is not capable of giving us the value we need. So there has to be a mindset shift to be cognizant of that maternal function. It has been the greatest challenge, especially for women in the formal spaces that are not in the public sector. Because at least for the public sector, we commend the government of Uganda. It gives its civil servants paid maternity leave. But in the private sector, it's a huge challenge. The moment a lady makes the decision to become a mother, she's actually making the decision to get out of the place of work. Because the day you go to give birth, that is it. They'll tell you, we don't know if by the time you come back, we will still have your sport. That's it. So it's something that the legal framework needs to deal with. The labor inspectors need to deal with, but also at company level, there has to be a mindset shift at the management to know that, she's going to become a mother, but that doesn't lessen her skill and qualification. She will come back and be in position to deliver on the assignments for which they were hired. Yes, so it's an uphill task, a really uphill task. And in the informal sector, since most of them are self-employed, or those that are still in the informal sector and employed, usually face the victim similar to those in the private sector. Those that are self-employed, they keep pushing, but then the support to continue working and being a mother is what is lacking. And there have been efforts really to try and see how to do it for market women. I don't know if it will move to the other sectors in the informal sector beyond some of the market women. You find them organized, they find an elderly woman to provide daycare services to their babies as they go about the sale of their merchandise. So it has to be a collective effort, and what we are doing today is a step towards it, because we are talking about it. So for those that didn't think it's a possibility, at least from this first step, from this pressure, they're able to know that, something can be done about this. So I encourage more colleagues, the media fraternity, the colleagues in civil society, to be able to talk about this and to share more of these experiences of how women out there are working in the various sectors and continuing to perform their maternal function of being mothers to our nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vyomuhanji, for pointing out those real issues. I've also heard of places where just because of requesting for a sick leave, an employee is replaced. These are very common stories in the private sector. Thank you very much for pointing those out. Honorable Fatima Ndangiza, are you available to answer the question on remedy mechanisms? And as she gets ready, I'll invite her journalists to also ask questions. Yes, please. Yes, I think, be better if it's...
All right, mine is just one question. The statement addresses many of the issues, and I go back to what Madame Jane raised earlier. My name is Ismail Ladu from Nation Media Group on power relation, which I think is the core of the matter, explaining even the kind of contracts that the investment schemes or the companies decides to make informal, even though it's a formal investment, everything formal, but when it comes to negotiation with the employers, it becomes informal. And majority of them seems to be the women who are affected. Now, I think this is one of the prescription to this is legislative. Now, looking from the legislative angle, and particularly for our case here, Madam Jane, in Uganda, where we have a substantial number of members of parliament whose work is to represent women specifically, how can they be empowered to be able to appreciate this issue? How can they be helped to be able to appreciate the issue of power relation, so that they can make it a number one discussion point in their parties? They are able to compel their parties to take it as a matter of importance, not as a by the way. How do we get them to that level?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Laddu, for that very important question, how we can be able to convince our members of parliament to address this issue. There are a number of ways which we can do that, but I think the most important issue is to be able to broaden the issue of understanding the issue of gender-based violence. Every time we talk about gender-based violence, we talk about how at the household level. Men beating women, women beating men, you know, and you find most of our members of parliament, that's where the concentration is. And if they broaden it a little bit more, genital mutilation, you know. But I think we need to broaden the issue of gender-based violence broader, to look at the economy, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in our trade and investment legal framework. Not so many members of parliament want to go there. In fact, there is a big link between women and the economy and trade and investment, the agreements, the treaties. In fact, when we talk about women in the economy, we stop at informal sector market women. So I think it's the perception which we need to broaden, that the kind of agreements we are making, the kind of treaties we are, investment and trade treaties we are signing, the kind of investment and trade policies we are putting in place, you know, we determine how women are treated in the workplace. If a woman doesn't have a contract, if there are no, there is limited access to remedy, if there are no labor officers to address all these grievances, women are going to suffer. So for me, I think we need also to empower our women to appreciate these issues, you know, because we have been struggling, for example, to address the issue of the review of the investment code, to be able to put there human rights impact assessments, to be there, to put there the rights of the workers, the rights of the environment, to be able to do that balancing act, you know, the rights and obligations of the investors and the rights and obligations of the state, of the workers, of the communities, and of the environment. So we need to empower ourselves, to empower our members of parliament to look at the issue of gender-based violence a bit, you know, in a broader way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nalunga. Any other question from our journalists? Okay. We have a wonderful team of journalists covering this today, and we are thankful to have you here on board with us. We'll have one more question. Let me ask, is Honorable Fatuma still available? Okay. to answer the question on remedy mechanisms. I could ask Miss Odwo, Maureen. Yes, you're still available, Miss Odwo, to give us, this is the last question for now, to tell us how women can improve their chances of getting formal contracts in the workplace.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this issue of formal contracts is very, very important. I think from my perspective,
We are now going to
and from the work
Uganda.
we've done,
Oh, they do Swahili.
men even working
And you
in the
Luganda.
plantations,
Okay.
in places where they were
Swahili
so prone
first.
to violence, one of the big issues that were coming out were their contracts. If you look at the contract issue well, I think there should be a lot of information sharing around there and capacity building for women themselves. Because for sure there are women who believe they can work without contracts. And you see, this is one place that it's very easy for an employer to offer women what is theirs, because they are at the point of we are not sure. Therefore, the women rights organizations and all people who support women in the labor market, there should be some capacity empowerment to women to know that whether they are somewhere, they should be having some contracts that and that keeps them there, because that's an instrument that gives them protection, and they can it can easily support them where need be. On the other hand, another mechanism we can use is we should continue these conversations that brings everyone on board, the employers, the government, and also the employees. It is important for the employer, it is important for, they look, the contracts are important, but still they don't give them. Why? Because of probably the capitalism nature of the way we do our business, especially in Africa. So someone wants to benefit more by holding these contracts, because when they hold them, they cannot be held accountable to some extent. So it's important also to get the employers, the trade unions, to follow up on this, to support women. Once they know and they are requesting or they are following up on their contracts, they need some backup of some nature. They need people who can push the agenda. They are there to tell the employer that yes, you are employed, you are engaging this particular person. Please, you need to give the contracts so that they work while they're having their own contracts. Therefore, these are some of the low-hanging fruits that we can do, reaching out to women themselves, making sure that they know they are at a point of I know that they need the contracts. From there, we shall engage them to always go fetch for it, ask for it, but also engage the employers through our trade unions, through our human rights caucuses, women rights coalition. So we make sure that the women who they require their contract are supported to get this contract. So I will, for now, I will give I will stand for the knowledge gap, and also I will stand for affirmative support for them to have their contracts as mechanism that can improve women having their contracts while they are engaged in labor markets. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Odwo. We are now going to have our closing remarks or parting shots from each of our wonderful panelists. I'll request Ezekiel and Ms. Odwo to give a Swahili version, because this is an East African community, to represent and to wish women happiness, not only today, but even in their workplaces. So I'll start with Ezekiel to come first, give his closing remarks in English and then Swahili, then Miss Maureen Odwo in English first and then Swahili, and then I'll invite more after you. Thank you very much. Mr. Ezekiel?
Yes. So I should start English and Swahili?
Yes, please.
Okay, so that's a funny thing because normally we don't prefer to speak Swahili. So in general, as all presenters and also the comments from the participants, we urge East African community play a part to ensure that women has rights and their rights are protected along all investment sectors, of which we see that it has high gender-based violence across, including mining, but also in natural resources, or for instance, forestry and national parks, where women nearby those investments are affected with gender-based violence. But also we add that at least because we see that at the world we live now, we see women and men have equal rights, but also have equal capabilities to participate in decision making, but also own resources of which, they will access their basic needs. So it is our play action that every one of us, but also our government, to ensure that women's rights are protected along all investment, but also women have equal access as men over resources. Thank you. In Swahili then, should I join? Yes.
Please.
Should I wait until
Join.
Asante sana kwa maoni ya jumla au wakati wa kuhitimisha, tunasema ya kwamba serikali zetu na taasisi mbalimbali zilizopo ikiwepo sisi taasisi zisizo za kiraia, taasisi zilizo za kiraia, tufanye wajibu wa kuhakikisha kwamba wanawake wanapata haki sawa kama wanaume na haki zao zinalindwa katika maeneo mengi ambapo tunaziona uwekezaji unakuja kuathiri katika wao kupata haki zao. Tunatazama kwamba maeneo mengi ya uchimbaji, maeneo mengi yenye hifadhi, maeneo mengi yenye uwekezaji mkubwa, wanawake ndio waathirika wakubwa. Kwa hivyo tunashauri ya kwamba serikali zetu, taasisi za kimataifa na sisi taasisi za kiraia tutimize wajibu wetu kuhakikisha kwamba wanawake wanapata haki sawa katika nyanja zote, zikiwepo za kiuchumi, lakini pia zikiwepo katika kushiriki kwenye ufanyaji wa maamuzi, lakini pia kwenye kupata haki ya kuweza kupata kipato ambazo zinawasaidia wao kuishi, lakini pia kuweza kupata huduma za kijamii. Asanteni sana.
Asanteni. Thank you so much. Miss Odro, you're welcome.
So much. My parting shot will be, I can't stop wishing you all happy International Women's Day. And from the discussion we've had in this press conference, we are very keen that four things came out to me that I think these ones are our take home. We are all agreeing that equal participation between men and women in politics and leadership is very key. We are all in agreement that availability of employment, and in this employment, safe employment and education will really give us a milestone. And then respect and adequate protection of human rights of women is very key for us to meet a development agenda. And then economic empowerment and poverty eradication cannot be echoed any less. So these four are my take home today, and they are things that we should all look into and to see to what extent can we amplify in our small ways that we are working to empower women. I'll go for Kiswahili. Nawashukuru sana wote mliochukua muda wenu kwa hii kikao cha leo. Kwangu mimi naonelea kuwa tumeweza kuiweka kipaumbele usawa dhidi ya mwanamke na mwanamume, hasa kwa siasa na hata kwa uongozi. Tumeangalia pia masuala ya kazi, wanawake wanahitaji kazi na pia elimu. itabidi tuendelee kuangalia mambo ya wanawake kwa mazingira yao na pia kuangalia haki za kibinadamu ambazo zinalenga wanawake siku zote. Alafu pia ni muhimu sana tuendelee kuangazia masuala ya kipato kwa wanawake na inabidi tupunguze umaskini ambao umekithiri katika kwa wanawake, watu wote, lakini haswa kwa wanawake. Kwa hiyo nikimalizia kabisa, ningependa kusema kuwa inabidi pia tubadili fikra kufikia usawa wa kijinsia. Tunaangaliaje ni nini, tukisikia usawa wa kijinsia ni nini inakuja katika vichwa vyetu. Kwa hiyo tubadili fikra kufikia usawa wa kijinsia kwa maendeleo endelevu. Tunataka maendeleo yetu ikuwe endelevu ili wote tuwe tunatinde, wote tuishi vizuri, tuwe na bara ambalo lina maendeleo iliyojikita sawa. Asanteni sana tena sana, hata kwa wale wote ambao wamefanya hii kazi yote ili tuweze kufikia hii leo na tumesherehekea vizuri. Thank you so much.
Asante.
You're welcome. Thank you too so much. I'm so inspired to finish my Swahili classes. I felt so proud of you, Ezekiel and Maureen. I want to be like you when I grow up. Very beautiful to listen to. So I'll invite Honorable Ndangiza, if she's available, to give us her parting shot, her closing remarks. Is she available? Okay. I'll invite Mr. Joseph Byomohanji to give us his closing remarks.
Thank you, moderator, and my dear panelists. As we celebrate the International Women's Day today, let us affirm our commitment to creating workspaces where everyone, including women, feels safe, respected, and valued. Let us work together to break the silence, challenge harmful norms, and hold perpetrators accountable for their actions. To the survivors of gender-based violence at the place of work, we see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Your stories are a testament to the resilience and the courage of women everywhere. Let us continue to push for policies, practices, and cultures that promote equality, justice, and human rights for all, despite our gender differences. Together, we can create a world of work where everyone can thrive and be free from violence and harassment in the world of work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us keep this conversation going and take collective action to end gender-based violence in the place of work.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Byomohanji. It was an honor listening from you and learning from you. I'll have Miss Robina Kagoye to give us her parting remarks in English first and then in Luganda. Thank you. Miss Kagoye, or whichever language you're most comfortable with. It's not Luganda. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much, the moderator and Siatini, for this wonderful conference. And very educative, and I've learned a lot. My parting remarks is just a call to all the stakeholders to ensure that we have safe and dignified workplaces for women, and to really actualize the right remedy to access justice, and also to collectively condemn casualization of labor, especially in Uganda, where the percentage now stands over 57%. So I just call upon all the stakeholders, all those concerned, that we need to be very, very deliberate about the rights of women workers in East Africa, because as Joseph said, they're really the backbone of our economy. So thank you so much, and happy Women's Day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Rebina Kagwe, for that. And we'll have our final remarks and parting shot from our very own dear country director of Siatini. Siatini, for our listeners, is Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. Miss Nalunga Jen, right here next to me, is going to give us her closing remarks in both English and then Luganda. You're welcome, Miss Nalunga.
But maybe to save on time, my closing remarks are going to be about thanking the partnership.
Okay.
The partnership across the region, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. As you have seen, Femnet is in Nairobi, but working across the region. WUKA is here, work together. TATIC is in Tanzania. We are also able to have a legislator, IALA. So it's a rich statement, and also we are committed to moving forward with the recommendations which are here. So I thank our partners, our comrades for this statement, and also for being here present. Even Voice for Labour, Robin, we also work together on these issues of labour. So I thank the partners, and I look forward for more engagement on this issue, very important issue of ensuring that our legal frameworks work for our women. So now I just wanted to say a few words when it comes to Luganda. Nti nga sooka okuyozaayoza abakyala naddala abakyala okutuuka ku lunaku luno, naye nga n'abaami era nabo mbayozaayoza okutuuka ku lunaku luno olw'abakyala. Lunaku luno lukulu nnyo kubanga we tutunuulira ensonga ezikwatira ddala ku bakyala. Ffe nga ebitongole bino ebitaano, Siatini, Femnet ekola ku bakyala e Nairobi, Voices of Labour eri wano e Uganda ekola era ku bintu by'abakozi, Uganda Consortium on Corporate Accountability ekola erondoola okulaba nti bamusigansimbi batuukiriza tebatyobola ddembe ly'abantu, ne TATIC kitongole ekyo nakyo kiri Tanzania. Twatudde ne tukola ekiwandiiko kino nga kyogera ku kulwanyisa okutyobola eddembe ly'abakyala mu makolero, naddala mu makolero ag'abamusigansimbi. Ate bwe twogera ku bamusigansimbi tetwogera ku bakyayina bokka, ne bamusigansimbi abatuuze ab'omu nsi zino. Kaakati nga tulaba nti gavumenti zaffe, kubanga ekiwandiiko kino kibadde kya Kenya, Uganda ne Tanzania, nga tulaba nti ensi zaffe ezo zireese nnyo bamusigansimbi. Abamusigansimbi beeyongedde, ekintu ekitali kibi kuba abamusigansimbi batuleetera emirimu, batuleetera ne ku ssente. Naye nga kye tulabye nti mu makolero muno mulimu nnyo okutulugunya abakyala, nti embeera abakyala mwe bakolera si nnungi, ng'osanga nti ebizibu abakyala bye basanga mu mirimu gino, oluusi emisaala giba mitono ddala, ate oluusi emisaala tegyenkana na gy'abaami, oluusi batuntuzibwa ebizibu bingi ebituukibwako abakyala. Kaakati ne tugamba nti tulina okulaba nti gavumenti ebizibu bino ebijjewo. Mpozi ekizibu kye twalabye ekikulu okuba okutuntuzibwa, okuba nti ne kati nga ku ttaka bagenda ne baleeta bamusigansimbi olw'okuba tewali bwerufu engeri bamusigansimbi gye babawaamu ettaka ne bagoba abantu ku ttaka. Tumanyi nti n'abaami nabo balumwa nga bagobye ku ttaka, naye ate omukyala alumwa nnyo. Gy'ova bw'olaba ebifaananyi eby'abantu abagobeddwa ku ttaka, olaba omukyala ye yeetisse obuseffuliya, abaana bali ku mugongo, ye yeetisse obulangiti. Bakyala balumwa nnyo. N'ekirala nti amateeka agafuga bamusigansimbi manafunafu. N'ekirala nga tewali abakyala bwe baba nga batuukiddwako ebizibu, we bagenda watono gye bagenda okulaba ng'ensonga ezo zigonjoolebwa, nawo tewali bulungi. Kaakati ne tuleetawo, tubadde tulina ebintu bingi bye tusabye gavumenti zaffe zikole, gavumenti ey'e Kenya, ey'e Rwanda n'ey'e Tanzania n'omukago gwa East Africa ogutwala ensi zino zonna, nga tugamba nti amateeka agafuga bamusigansimbi ganywezebwemu. Amateeka gano ganywezebwe kubanga olaba amateeka gano agafuga bamusigansimbi gasukkulumya musigansimbi ne gatafaayo nnyo kulaba nti abakozi bo eddembe lyabwe liri litya, ne batalaba nti oba n'ebitundu community, ebitundu musigansimbi ono mwagenze byo biri bitya. Amateeka gano ne gatalaba n'obutonde bwo bukoleddwa butya, n'olaba nga gavumenti yaffe n'amateeka agaliwo gasuusuuta musigansimbi. Kaakati nga tubadde tusaba gavumenti etereezeemu mu ekyo okulaba nti amateeka gatereeza okulaba nga buli bantu bonna abali mu kintu kino eddembe lyabwe terityoboolebwa, era nga tusaba waliwo etteeka lyennyini erikwata ku bamusigansimbi mu Uganda liyitibwa Investment Code, ekyusibwemu ebeere ng'obuwaayiro obwo babwongeramu. Kubanga ate ekirala kye tulabye nti gavumenti zaffe zitadde ebiwandiiko bingi eby'ensi yonna nti kino tujja kukikola, tujja kulaba nti abakozi baffe eddembe lyabwe terityoboolya, tujja kukola kino, naye amateeka ago gabadde tetunagajja okugateeka mu mateeka agafuga bamusigansimbi. Ekirala kye tubadde tusabye era kwe kulaba nti amateeka weegali, kubanga tulina ebitongole ebikwata ku bakozi, naye nga tusaba byongerwemu amaanyi nti omukozi bw'aba alina omusango gw'awaabye, omusango ogwo gukolebweko, ate bwe guba ogw'omukyala, omukyala abeere ng'asobola okuyambibwa, kubanga kye tulabye nti oluusi abakyala batya n'okukola n'okugenda okuwaaba emisango egyo. Kakati ebyo bye bimu n'ebirala bingi bye tusabye, naye ebikulu bye tusabye. Naye nga tuva waggulu tugamba nti omukazi yenna bw'aba ng'ali bulungi, amaka gajja kuba bulungi, n'ensi yaffe ejja kuba bulungi.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nalunga. Indeed, a happy woman makes a happy family and a happy community. So we all stand to benefit if we make the women around us happy. Thank you very, very much, Ms. Nalunga. We've now come to the end of this presser. I'd like to thank you all, participants online and those who are present physically. Thank you so much for commemorating the International Women's Day with us together. The theme, the international theme for this Women's Day was for all women and girls, rights, equality, empowerment, accelerating action. So in our daily tasks, let's all try to see how we can accelerate action and improve these things, the rights for women, equality, and empowerment for women in our society. Thank you all very much for participating, and we wish you all a happy and blessed International Women's Day. In a special way, I would like to thank the Siatini team, the organizing team led by Mr. Herbert Cafero, and the staff, Owen, Paul, and the rest of the technical team who have made this day possible. Our journal